Welcome to This Week in Christian History, a podcast from the Center for Christian History at Mississippi College. The Center for Christian History is dedicated to expanding knowledge and understanding of Christian history. Our mission is to provide a scholarly, unbiased look at the events, figures, and movements that have shaped Christianity over the centuries. You can visit centerforchristianhistory.com for daily historical highlights. And each week on this podcast, we'll do a deep dive into key moments with Christian history's leading authorities. First up on our list of historical highlights for the week is the old-fashioned Revival Hour with Dr. Charles Fuller, one of the most successful Christian radio programs on the airways. The program was a live broadcast that has recently been revived for the internet, but for decades came from the Long Beach Memorial Auditorium in Long Beach, California. The broadcast went live from Long Beach for the last time on January 12, 1958, and was then moved to a recording studio. It stayed on the air until Dr. Fuller died in 1968. Next up on our list, and the subject of our deep dive, is Isaac Watts' entry into pastoral ministry. Watts was a hymn writer and a nonconformist pastor and theologian who aimed to form Christian minds and hearts through biblically grounded worship. His ministry and worship leadership grew out of a community living outside of the established Church of England. In late 17th and early 18th century England, nonconformists, or dissenters, were Christians who could not, in good conscience, conform to the requirements of the state church, and, therefore, faced limitations in education, public life, and institutional access. However, those barriers did not extinguish the intellectual or spiritual life of the nonconformists. Instead, the barriers helped to produce some of the most influential parallel structures in Protestant history. Last up on our list of historical highlights for the week is the Edict of Saint-Germain. The French Protestants, also known as Huguenots, received a short-lived freedom to practice their religion when Queen Regent Catherine de' Medici issued the edict on January 17, 1562. France was undoubtedly a Catholic nation, and Catherine had a personal connection to Catholicism, as her great-uncle was Pope Leo X. The edict legalized the practice of other religions, but it also emphasized that France would remain a Catholic country. Today in our deep dive, Nick Walters, founder and director of the Center for Christian History, talks with Daniel Johnson of London School of Theology about Isaac Watts' entry into pastoral ministry.
Hello and welcome back again to another episode of This Week in Christian History. And we are using the opportunity and the date of January the 14th, 1702, which is the day that Isaac Watts got, as we might say, called up full time into the ministry as a pastor. And while many of us might know Isaac Watts from his so many very famous and great hymns, his role as a pastor is part of what we want to talk about, in addition to him being a great hymn writer. And we have Dr. Daniel Johnson with us, who is with the London School of Theology and is on faculty there. So, Dr. Johnson, thank you for joining us and making time.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, I mean, so if we are talking about right in the very early parts of the 1700s in England or Great Britain, maybe at that point in time. And we've just come 40 or 50 years after the English Civil War, and we are having all the times of Cromwell being in, and all the times of the Church of England being large and in charge. That doesn't mean everybody bought off onto the Church of England, right? And so in addition to Puritans or anybody else that we might think of. So let's talk a little bit about Isaac Watts in that context, about the pastor of what? I mean, what he had been the pastor of?
So Isaac Watts was a pastor of a nonconformist or dissenting congregation. These were people who were outside of the Church of England. Isaac Watts was born in 1674, and while he was a baby, his father was imprisoned for his nonconformist convictions. And Isaac Watts, as he grew up, he was a very kind of gifted child. There's accounts of him kind of reciting poems um, at the family dinner table and things like this. And he was offered a scholarship to go to university,
Mm,
which required him to join the Church of England, and
okay.
he declined. Now, the reason being that at the throughout the 17th century, as the Puritans and the Church of England overlapped, some were
Okay.
inside of it, some weren't. So a famous independent Puritan would be somebody like John Owen,
Okay.
who some of your listeners might know. This is kind of a
Sure.
leading mid-century theologian. And so Isaac Watts, in his tradition, this independent tradition, they believe that the local church has the kind of the final authority, that it is an elder-led congregation. Um, so when Isaac Watts did become pastor, it was a congregation that John Owen had been a pastor of a
Oh,
couple of generations previously. So it was a leading nonconformist independent congregation right in the heart of London. Um,
so if, oh, I'm sorry.
no, no, go ahead.
No, so if I am a dissenter or I am a nonconformist, how do I know who the other dissenters and nonconformists are? Do I meet them in prison one day, or everybody understands, hey, this is one of those other congregations?
Yeah.
Because it seems almost kind of, I know what I am or I am not,
Mhm.
but how do I find others that are also believe this same way? Is that a weird
Yeah,
question, or is that
no,
a,
no, no, that makes sense. So there's been times throughout, as I say, in the 1670s when when dissenters, nonconformists were persecuted. In 1688, there was the so-called Glorious Revolution. William of
Mhm.
Orange came over. 1689, there's the Act of Toleration, and this gives dissenters, nonconformists, a degree of legal autonomy. So they are allowed to have their own meeting houses, not churches, meeting houses. A,
Gotcha.
a, a church is a technical term for a building that belongs to the Church of England, but dissenters were allowed meeting houses, and they were allowed to worship with a degree of freedom. There's kind of degrees of citizen cultural citizenship. So you would have members of the Church of England who would be at the top. Then you've got dissenters who are still Protestants. Then beneath that would be Catholics, and then probably beneath that, I'm afraid to say, would probably be Jews. And there are kind of
Mm,
degrees of acceptance within society. So
I gotcha.
dissenters have some powers, and that's growing. Their fortunes uh, ebb and flow during Watts's lifetime, but certainly by the middle of the 18th century, the fortunes of dissenters are much more established.
Are there universities at that time that are made up of dissenters or made up of nonconformists or made up, or is everything still done by the
S-
Church of England and that's why you couldn't get in unless you
y-
know,
Yeah, so
followed?
to go to university, you have to be a part of the Church of England, but dissenters had academies.
Mm,
So, for example, some of your listeners may know of the name Philip Doddridge, who
mhm.
was a friend of Watts's and another hymn writer, another independent pastor. He ran an academy in Northampton. Isaac Watts attended Thomas Rose Academy in Stoke Newington in the northwest of London, and he was there for 4 years, and it's quite remarkable. There is a book. It was in the Dr. Williams Library. It's now in the John Rylands Library in Manchester. This was a book uh, written by Bishop Wilkins, and it's a book called his Ecclesiastes. And what it is, it's a compendium of recommended reading. It's just page after page after page of lists of books.
Hmm.
Now, in the John Rylands Library is Isaac Watts's copy with all of his handwritten notes from his study days.
Wow.
So it's got his thoughts on early church fathers. It's got his views on Origen, Athanasius, Augustine. It's got demonstration of his engagement with Aquinas, Luther, Calvin, William Perkins comes up a lot. Um, there are comments about his early views on congregational singing,
Huh.
Some of the books by people like Thomas Ford and Benjamin Keach, who have discussed and debated the rights and wrongs of congregational singing throughout the 17th century. It's a fascinating document because it's all handwritten, and he's interleaved it so that he can put his own pages in, and it's got his own comments. I've been very fortunate to study that book and learn about his time as a dissenter at the academy, and learn about his education.
And do you think it's because he grew up around the table of understanding where his father was, that he even thought that that was maybe a safe type of place to even have that kind of dialogue and learning in the first place, instead of, no, son, you better get in line and follow what the Church of England says. This is not
Yeah,
okay. And, you know,
yeah, that they were. I think there's a definite sense of family allegiance
mm,
there, kind of joining with his father's his loyalty there.
yeah, yeah. Kind of gave him the comfort level maybe
Yeah,
to start thinking that way, and to be able
yeah,
to go through that. So you would have maybe, while you, and the way we would think of it as a modern day way of going to a seminary or a school of theology or something like that, that would be established by not established by the church. Is it kind of like the way that people that used to be tutors or something? Hey, I'm the person with the knowledge. I'm putting a stake in the ground. I'm opening up
yeah,
my doors. You want to pay to come on in, come in, and
yeah,
I'm going to teach you the things that I know, and that you're going to
yeah,
kind of be in my theology school, so to speak. Is
yeah.
that
It's
sort of
that
right?
kind of thing.
Okay.
So yeah, the academy was run by Thomas Rowe. Thomas Rowe had been trained under somebody called Theophilus Gale, who had written a few fairly high-profile theology books in the middle of the 17th century. So there was a bit
Mm,
of precedent there.
okay.
It's got some credential to it. It is a leading dissenting academy. And while Watts was there, he studied Latin, Greek, Hebrew, maths, astronomy, logic, uh, and it's a very varied and rigorous
I
curriculum.
got you. He didn't just see a flyer one day or or an
Yeah, no,
advertisement on the side of
no,
on
no,
the side of a post on the side of a building somewhere, right? And
no,
just
no,
go,
no.
oh, this would be fun, right?
Yeah, there's large social connections that would have made this a very obvious move for him.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about his hymnology, right? Of
Yeah,
his of being a hymnist, because that certainly is the thing that drives a whole bunch of people to be able to know about him at all. And he's so prolific. My
yeah.
gracious, how many hymns did he actually write?
So he published in 1707. He published his Hymns and Spiritual Songs. That has about 250 uh, hymns in it. 2 years later, he published an expanded edition that has about 450 in total. Then in 1719, he publishes his Psalms of David, imitating the language of the New Testament. 1715, he also publishes a small book of hymns for children. So he doesn't publish as many as Charles Wesley, for example,
Mm,
who goes into the many, many thousands. But I haven't, somewhere between kind of 600, 800. He's pretty prolific. But interestingly, after 1719, he doesn't publish any more hymns, and he died in 1748. So
wow.
his hymns are part of the first part of his career, but they're only part of what he did.
You can watch the rest of Nick's interview with Daniel Johnson by clicking the View Full Interviews button on the podcast page of centerforchristianhistory.com. This Week in Christian History is produced for the Center for Christian History by Blue and Gold Media at Mississippi College in cooperation with the MC Department of Communication. For episode transcripts and more information, visit centerforchristianhistory.com. Be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and follow the Center for Christian History on Facebook and Instagram. Our next podcast episode is coming next week. Thank you for listening.